Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 157, featuring the top 5 Xindi War Moments. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we are heading deep into the expanse for our 5th ever standalone Enterprise topic. And I love this one. It's the top 5 Xindi War Moments. And we will dive into that in our Diagnostic Cycle in a minute. But first up, let's introduce quickly our 2 temporal Starfleet agents that we have lined up for this topic. First, back for her 18th appearance, temporal engineer from the USS New Jersey and host of the Great Snap Trek podcast, Jenn Tifft. Welcome back.
Oh, thanks, Jim. It's so great to be back.
You gotta love that USS New Jersey drop in Picard season 3.
I was very excited. Yes, yes.
Super cool. And back for his 3rd appearance, a Star Trek nerd of such renown. He created a band like almost 15 years ago, not quite, but almost, writing one song for every episode of TOS. That band is 5-Year Mission, and we love them and can never say too many nice things about them. And honestly, people, if you like great alternative pop, rock, indie, 90s music, and Star Trek, what are you waiting for? Go check out 5-Year Mission. It's my good friend, Mike Rittenhouse. Michael.
Hello, Jim. Good to be here.
Good to have you back on, sir. Any 5-Year Mission updates you want to give us, Mike?
We're working on year 5. We have a few songs are close to being ready to record, but the rest we are still working on, so it'll be a little while.
It'll be worth the wait.
Mm-hmm.
We can't wait. Okay, enough of that. Let's get into our TrekRanks recalibration.
You can recalibrate the regulators now.
Will do.
Okay, the TrekRanks charter has 2 clauses. 1, we rank Trek so we can have a fun conversation about Star Trek. And 2, the ranks don't matter. We just use them as the framework to have a deep dive conversation about all the things we love about Trek.
But what is that Vulcan motto? Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
And what is diversity? But a celebration of differences.
Because as T'Pol and Dr. Phlox just said, TrekRanks is just a big old celebration of differences. There are no wrong answers at TrekRanks, and we love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise, and the Kelvin timeline, now Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds, Short Treks, Lower Decks, and Prodigy as well. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of TrekRanks is current through the Star Trek Picard completed 3rd season episode, The Last Generation. That's 883 episodes of Star Trek across the past 56 years. And the 13 films aren't really in play tonight, or are they? Could somebody have a tricky pick from the films? We shall see.
Hailing frequencies open.
Thank you, Mr. Worf. You can hail me directly on Twitter at TrekRanks or at Enterprise Extra. And you can see our extensive rankings of all the Treks at TrekRanks.com. And don't forget to call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Okay, let's wrap it up. Jenn and Mike, let everyone know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace. Jenn.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm at @EatAtQuarks, and my podcast is Snap Trek.
We love Snap Trek. Mike, where can people get to you?
I'm also on Twitter. I do check it sometimes. My handle on there is Classic Rittenhouse, though I think that it's @_Rittenhouse. I don't know. But I'm usually on Facebook, occasionally on Instagram. All of those under Mike Rittenhouse. Also, I'm in 5-Year Mission, so I'm sure you can find me there wherever you can find that.
That's at 5-Year Mission, the number 5-Year Mission. Okay, we are ready to run a diagnostic cycle to get into today's show.
Computer, run a level 2 diagnostic.
Okay, really quick. We're going to run through a quick primer on the Xindi War and Star Trek Enterprise. So it really started with the last episode of season 2, The Expanse, in which we get our first taste of the Xindi. And the whole premise of that starting point in season 3 was that Enterprise was going to become heavily serialized and have a story arc for the first time to try and juice the ratings a bit. And, the early 2000s was when that new modern era of TV was really starting with serialized show. And that was the remit they gave to Enterprise to go all in on serialization, which was really the first time that ever happened in Star Trek, where the studio and the creators were kind of 100% on the same page in terms of like a targeted serialization. Obviously, Deep Space Nine and was heavily serialized, but that wasn't necessarily like a studio directive, and was mostly because they weren't really paying attention. And TNG and Voyager both had some really good serialization in their stories, but nothing where it was pre-planned, like the whole season. How that was the directive, top to bottom for Star Trek. So it basically ran for 24 episodes of season 3, plus that last episode of season 2. And depending on how you look at Stormfront, you could count those. And there's a few other Xindi references in Trek since then. There was some in Prodigy, some in the films, Kelvin Timeline. I think there was one in Discovery. Yeah, there was one in Discovery. So that's kind of the snapshot of the universe we were looking at here for these Xindi War Moments. Okay, let's get into our Prime Directive now and see how everyone came up with their lists.
Do they know about Prime Directive? They know everything I know, sir.
And you're about to know everything we know about our Prime Directive. So, Jen, let's start with you. How did you define your Prime Directive and finalize your picks?
Okay, first of all, I just want to say I adore this arc. There's just something about it. It's just so epic. The bad guys are unique in a really cool way. We'll talk more, I'm sure, about the actual Xindi themselves, who are amazing, yep. And the excitement levels, like throughout the season, like you can feel the urgency in every episode, even the ones that are slowed down. There's still that urgency of this threat, and like you said, just the first time that it was designed to do that, and they did it really well.
And urgency is such a great way to describe it. If you feel it the whole season.
Yeah. But to me, as far as like the Xindi, if you're going to call it the Xindi War arc, to me, the more interesting parts of a war are the micro parts, like I'm more interested in how it affects the individual people than the teams, you know what I mean? So I'm more interested in how Trip is going to react to the loss of his sister versus like how Earth is going to react to the Xindi using the weapon. You know what I mean? I'm saying like it's those little individual bits that are more interesting to me personally. So that my list is very smaller, I guess, some small moments. So that's all I did is I picked my favorites. My favorite ones that really have a personal impact to the characters, but also just the psychology of war as opposed to like the strategies of war,
Yeah, that's interesting. I did think about that after I told you. I kind of just settled on Xindi War quickly, right? I didn't really think about it.
Yeah.
But then I was like, it's actually, you could just call it the Xindi arc or, Xindi moments.
Conflict.
Yeah. Or conflict.
Misunderstanding.
And I looked it up on Memory Alpha. They call it the Xindi Crisis.
Oh,
but then I was like, but Xindi War got referenced a couple of times.
Yeah.
And one of the ideas for me when coming up with this, because I think we're going to do Dominion War moments too at some point. So I was like, let's just do Xindi War. So I didn't think about it too much. I'm not sure it's the most accurate, but it'll definitely get your attention when you see it in your podcast queue. Okay, Mike, how about you? How did you kind of dive into this?
All right, so full disclosure, after you asked me about this 2 days ago, I have watched the entire thing.
Okay, it wasn't 2 days ago, but it was like 4 days ago. So that's fantastic.
I'm impressed.
I wasn't going to, but I mean, what are you going to do once you start it? Like,
right.
You can't stop it.
It's so good.
And so, I started watching, and so I ended up watching the entire thing beginning to end. And so what I have decided is, there are so many moments in this arc. I wanted to narrow it down because it's just way too much to even begin. So I decided that I was going to focus on the most devastating, tragic, and heartbreaking moments that happen.
Wow. Okay. That's super cool.
I also I wanted to focus since you're referring to it as the the moments in the Xindi War. I have avoided any alternate realities or time travel.
Okay, interesting. Because
Okay.
I did the same thing.
Yeah,
I did also.
everything that happens just within the actual prime timeline.
Yep.
And I also left out similitude because, I mean, Jen's got that covered, I'm sure.
You have my number, but I assure you, I restrained myself with this list with the Trip Tiger references.
Amazing. All right. So I actually was similar. So my Prime Directive got a little convoluted. First thing I did was I wanted to focus on really specific moments and decisions. So kind of very narrow and small. So nothing broad like an entire episode. And then as I started brainstorming, I decided I'm going to eliminate all the time travel, all the temporal shenanigans. So, and that's a bunch of great episodes. So Twilight, Carpenter Street, even E Squared, and like the Enterprise J was on my list for a while, but I was like, no, that's Daniels. So I had to eliminate that. So I pushed all that stuff out. And then from there, I just tried to narrow it down, and I realized that there was kind of like a theme emerging and I was gravitating toward, and that it was really, mine was kind of about the developing of trust through this arc. And and as much as I wanted to just have like fun explosions and cool things, because there's so many interesting things happen with the reconfiguring of the expanse and everything, that I kind of narrowed it down to all these really cool kind of less devastating moments that Mike was saying, but like heartfelt moments of where you were really advancing the trust of solving this thing. Yeah, all of my picks have something to do with that. Okay. Oh, and finally, once I got my 5 picks, I did tell the story chronologically. So all my picks are going to be in order. So, okay. I think we are ready to have Third Roboticon introduce us to the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Thank you, Third Roboticon. As always, everyone will start with their 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease their pick. Then we'll each reveal our Xindi War moments and the reasons we're highlighting it. And of course, everyone will pick one episode to associate with that pick. And after getting through our 5 rounds of picks, we'll get into a few secondary system selections for everyone. And remember, if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. I think we might have some duplicates, or we could easily not. We shall see. Okay, Jen, let's start with you. What's your number 5 pick for your top 5 Xindi War moments?
Yeah, when you say we might have some duplicates, I can pretty much guarantee that this one will be a duplicate with you if you're focusing on trust.
Okay.
Okay, so my first pick is contractors on the Death Star, #to trust. This is Greylick sabotaging the chemo site.
Yes.
In episode 7, The Shipment. And they literally toast to trust.
Yes, they do.
So I'm sure that we might talk about this a little more. But I adore this moment. So my 5 words, contractors on the Death Star, of course, I'm referencing the Clerks scene where they talk about the contractors on the Death Star being innocent victims of the war, And I think about that. I think about that a lot in terms of this episode, with how he's just making chemosite.
Yeah.
But the thing that I like about Greylick Durr is that he doesn't shy away from his complacency in what has happened to Earth. Right away, Archer tells him, they used your chemosite to make a weapon to kill 7 million of my people. And that really affects him. He says, okay, like we knew Degra was asking for some very, some very refined chemosite. And he assured us it was for research. And we chose to believe him because he gave us a lot of money.
Yeah.
By the end, he's like, I should have chosen my clients more carefully, he says. And he does what he can to rectify that. He takes his part of the responsibility of that. And at great danger to himself, decides to help them by, not only allowing them to put some radiolytic trace on it, or what what have you that they do.
Modified radiolytic signature.
Of course. So they can trace it, but then he also sabotages, the shipment itself. Like he makes it, adds impurities to it that makes the next test unsuccessful, and that's huge. That turns out to be a very, very huge piece of this weapon not reaching Earth, and it was just one guy who decided to own up, and I just love that. That gets me every time. I love that. And the chemosite facility itself is really cool. You see
it's so cool.
Like the orange liquid, like refinery it's really cool. And the sloth, Xindi are just amazing.
Hey, they're arboreals.
They're sloths, and they're adorable. I love them so much.
Okay, well, let's just get to this right away.
Yeah.
We'll skip over you for now, Mike.
Yeah.
My 5 words in a hashtag. All Xindi, not your enemy. Hashtag.
Yes.
Thy name is Greylick, and it is trusting Greylick and in the shipment Enterprise season 3 episode 7. So the one thing I'll flip here is one of the reasons, and I love Greylick, incredible character. Everything you said is really huge. The way he comes to grips with the information and makes those choices at his own risk. But my favorite part about this episode is the first time where finally you're getting Archer realizing a little bit like, man, blowing up this plant or killing these people is not going to do us any good. Yes. It's just going to radicalize the Xindi even more. We have to come up with a better plan, because like the first thing they do when they get there is like, oh shit, let's blow this plant up.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, no. And so it's about 7 episodes into this arc where you finally kind of get out of straight revenge mode. There's more of that I'll talk about later, but I think that was a really important moment for this arc to do that. And then from just a Enterprise's cool perspective, all these early CGI shots that they use in this episode just add so much scope to the planet and the complex where they're making the chemosite. There's 3 or 4 different ones. There's one inside the plant that's huge. There's ones of the ships from different angles and the compound, and Archer riding up the little lift into the ship and running off. I mean, it's just really, really early days cool CGI that I think does a pretty good job of standing the test of time. So love this pick. A duplicate right off the bat. Mike, what is your take on Greylick?
Well, it is 1 5-star episode out of 25 in a row.
Right.
No, it's great. Like you said, with the effects, I mean, I have a giant TV that I watch everything on now, and I mean, it holds up. I mean, it's so good.
It really does.
The episode is great. I, however, was not able to really use anything from it for my Prime Directive, because this is one of the few episodes in the season that offers a bit of hope.
So true. So true. I can't. All right. Well, let's
and just to what you were saying to Jim about Archer's evolution.
Yeah.
This is the first episode where he starts thinking more strategically,
right,
and stops thinking about revenge. You can kind of see throughout the season how he grows in his response. I mean, I suppose at some point we'll have to talk about how this is just a directly, Star Trek's response to 9/11.
Yeah.
Really?
How
Seriously?
I guess we'll have to talk about it at some point. But just the way that he starts out just blindly wanting revenge and doing things. I'm sure we'll talk about it later. Some of the things he chooses to do, and you can kind of watch through the season how he matures in his response to what happened. And that you're right. This is that first kind of breakthrough moment. This is that first breakthrough moment. Yeah. And yeah. I like the way you put that.
Where we will talk about this more later is with another character who takes longer to break through on this. Mr. Trip Tucker. Okay. So let's get to the devastation of the Xindi War. Were you going to say with Trip Tucker sprinkles? Is that what you're about to say?
I like everything with Trip Tucker sprinkles on it.
All right. Mike, what is your round 5 pick of destruction?
What the fuck just happened? Hashtag Chibi Death Star. It's the opening scene of The Expanse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Season 2, episode 26.
Great pick.
It's the very first scene of this entire arc. I had to include it because it was such a great kickoff to the next 25 episodes, and it's so unexpected, and like you're like, what, when you're watching it for the first time, you're like, what is even happening right now?
Yeah.
And it leaves you the whole episode, like for the first half of the episode, you just have no idea what happened and what's going on. You're right there with the characters.
Yeah.
And like for a minute you think maybe it was the Klingons, and like very short brief moment you think maybe it was the Suliban, and then it turns out to be the Xindi, and you don't know who they are. And it's just, the whole episode is like, it's almost like the entire episode is the first act of an episode.
Right.
Like, it leads them right up to the edge of the expanse, and then
going into it, you kind of know this is the season finale. So wherever this leaves off, I gotta wait 3 months.
Yep.
That was killer. I distinctly remember that being like just engrossed and enjoying it and thinking about it, but also knowing like, oh man, I gotta wait so long to pick this up.
Also, as far as my Prime Directive goes, I mean, they kill 7 million people,
right?
And it's pretty devastating.
Yeah, it really is. Again, like we talk about the visual effects, that one sticks with you. It's really well done. Jen, what's your take on the opening of the Xindi?
Yeah, that's, I love me a good cold open.
Yeah.
But what's effective about it too is it kind of what you were saying, Mike. It's kind of just the coldness of it, the not knowing, the not see. You don't see who's doing this. You don't like, they don't like. It's just a sphere coming to Earth and raining this fire down on it and causing this destruction, and it's terrifying. It's terrifying, and it's cold, and it's to start off this an arc like this, had to be gruesome. But I think the way they did it was for maximum effectiveness as far as what the feelings they're trying to induce. With us after especially 2003. So it's a good pick if you're going for downers there, Mike.
Absolute home run from that, and the stuff with the Vulcans and like talking about
that episode ends with them entering the expanse.
Yeah, right. So there was all the moments with Sabal arguing, and they're arguing about they had that video clip from the Vulcan ship.
Oh right, yes.
Ugh, that was creepy. Okay.
Oh, so creepy.
All right, let's go to round 4. Jen, what's your number 4 pick?
Okay, I'm gonna preface this pick by saying I mean this pick with all sincerity. Like, I'm not trying to be funny. Okay. All right. Just the 32 of us. #Daddy Archer. And this is Archer imprinting on the bug babies.
Oh my
in
God.
hatchery.
Oh man.
And I mean this pick with all sincerity. Like, I'm not, it's funny. It is. It's objectively funny that he's so obsessed with these bug babies. But it's also just what it's saying about like finding the humanity in your enemies too. They pick the insectoids, which are they're gross and
creepy,
and the these little bug babies crawling all over them. It's really, really creepy. They are creepy, but they also, here's what you learn about them. You learn that like the insectoids are good parents. They sacrifice themselves to put life support on their hatchery, and that's why they died. Right. You learn that like there's a scene, the scene that if I'm picking a moment, the scene I'm picking is Archer talking to Trip, and Trip's just like you're nuts, basically. Like, I have half a mind to to take a plasma torch to the place,
right?
And Archer says to him, he's like, well, what if they were primate babies? Would that be that easy for you?
Right.
And and that line just sticks with me. It's very thought provoking about where is it easy to draw the line and who you consider someone who's worthy of your humanity, your compassion, and yeah, okay, maybe if it was primates or cute little sloth arboreal babies, that wouldn't even be a question. But because it's like the insectoids, it's harder to sympathize with them, and that says a lot about human nature, I think.
According to Phlox, the insectoids we found weren't killed in the crash; they suffocated.
Most of the crew appear to have died when they transferred their life support to the hatchery.
They sacrifice themselves to save their children. You said the hatchery's losing biosupport. How long will it last?
Another day at most.
I want you to assign a team to repair it.
Captain?
What about Azadi Prime?
It's not going anywhere. This is a sentient species. We can't abandon them.
Captain, with all due respect, why the hell not? I've got half a mind to take a plasma torch to that place.
What if we found a nursery filled with 31 infant primates? Would you want to torch them? The Xindi are trying to destroy Earth because they heard that humans are ruthless. This is a chance to prove them wrong.
We can bring the eggs aboard, reconfigure one of the cargo bays.
I already talked to Phlox. He says they're integrated into the hatchery walls. If we remove them, they'll die.
Sir, this is crazy. These people are trying to kill us.
This isn't open for discussion.
Also, I want to on record that Archer asked Trip if it's possible to keep the life support going before he gets infected with the goo.
Yep.
Too. He's that, you know, he's getting there at this point. This is episode 17, you know.
Right.
Earlier Archer probably would have just taken a plasma torch to the whole hatchery, you know, before he got, you know, imprinted on them. But so that episode's silly, but it really does have a purpose in this arc, I think.
You summed it up perfectly. That I forget about that line because it kind of changes your whole perspective of the episode when he says, "What if they were primate?"
Yep.
Because you wouldn't do it. No one would do it.
Right.
And that just makes you that Star Trek. There's a massive dose of Star Trek just hit you in the face.
Yes.
So brilliant. Really, I would never have thought about picking this, but that is a brilliant pick. Mike, what's your take?
This is actually a pretty close cut on my secondary systems. The scene with the where the infant hatchlings die.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Gosh.
That was one of my heartbreaking moments.
Devastating.
Yes. He calls a medical emergency to Dr. Phlox.
Right. I know.
And T'Pol's like, really? But yeah, that is really sad. But like the little dead bug baby that they like, just props to to whoever makes those props.
And more really good CGI.
Oh yeah, yes, yeah. Well, the insectoids in general, like, are really cool.
Right, absolutely.
Like this weird the way they're like. Yeah, the way they're bugs, but they're still like they hold guns like normal like humanoids, and
it works.
They're creepy and cool.
It works.
It's better than 847-2.
Yeah,
I love 847-2, but the level is definitely better in terms of like the CGI and the execution.
Yeah, that's interesting too. And then they're trying to do two separate things with those.
Of course, but it's also 5 years difference. That literally 847.
Oh yeah, that's
really
right.
At the very very start of that technology.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome pick, Mike. Devastate us.
Doctrine is always the worst. Hashtag Dijamot can eat a bag of dicks.
Yes.
It's the scene where Dijamot deletes the sphere data in Chosen Realm.
Such a dick. I forgot.
Hate that guy.
Deletes the sphere data. God, he's the worst.
He really is the worst. Like you kind of
worst.
Like for a little bit early on, you're like, you think maybe you can sympathize or you can understand, but then once they really get into it, you're like, these people just suck.
Yeah.
It's the classic Trek, we destroyed ourselves for nothing scenario. Like at the end, when they get back to the planet and it's just everything's destroyed, and over what, 9 days versus 10 days on how long it takes to make the spheres.
Yeah. Thank you for putting Doctrine sucks in your your 5 words and a hashtag.
I knew you would enjoy that.
This episode's hard to watch because these zealots are just it's everything you hate in this type of belief system and the way they act. And
this is halfway through the series or through the season. So
yep.
They've been working this whole time collecting all this data and just kind of piecing together what they know, and then just to have that taken away just in like 10 seconds. The look on Archer's face says it all. Like he's just devastated.
Yeah, that part will tie into my pick coming up. But Jen, what's your take on Tijamat and his terrible crew?
Yeah, Doctrine sucks, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, I hate him so much. Like he's so frustrating talking to Archer. Like he says, Archer says something about the crewmen that lost their life in the suicide bombing.
Right.
And he's like, don't forget, Jonathan, I lost a crewman too.
You just want to hit him.
Or you want to like strangle the guy.
You made the right decision. I promise you, your people won't be harmed.
You just murdered one of my people.
I had to erase any doubts you might have about our resolve.
What do you want with my ship?
When I'm satisfied the situation is secure, I'll answer your questions. I also lost a crewman in that explosion, Captain. I'll say a prayer for them both.
Save your breath.
He also, at one point, I guess he reads the logs or reads their data and everything, and he calls Archer out for the airlocking.
Right, an anomaly.
And he calls him out. Like, this guy, like, you messed up. This guy is saying that you did something unethical. And it's just, yeah. Also, with this, I just like that they have people who see these spheres that are basically destroying this area of space, and they choose to make that their religion. Like, that's just something that would happen.
It's something that would happen. And I kind of forgotten about that. It's a great way to tie that into this topic.
Yeah.
With the sphere builders and everything. Yep.
Yeah,
so
like they're like they have like scars from the space warp, and like, oh, it's, what does he call it? Like, oh, it's tears of the gods or whatever the hell he says. It's like, you are disgusting.
They're the worst. Okay.
Also, I just like to ignore the fact that later in the season they have all of the information again. Like towards the end, like they bring it up on the screens, and it's all of the same images that they had.
They
saved like 30% of it or something like that. So Paul said,
and they reconstructed it from. You didn't see that scene. There was a reconstruction from an old.
They found a backup, and
I have no problem with problem with headcanon. I am cool with that.
I love it. Okay, let's go to my round 4 pick. A little bit ties into this, kind of the same theme here, but in the reverse. It's the hope part, the trust part. 5 words and a hashtag. Archer writes, extremely valuable to us. Hashtag last second scan. And it is the download of the Xindi database and tech at the end of Proving Ground, when Archer and Shran are playing this game of cat and mouse between them of who to trust. They kind of both know they're being played. I love this episode. It's awesome. It's super dense, just jam-packed with fun stuff. And the back and forth between, by the way, this also is the payoff of Greylick sabotaging the Kiva site, because they were able to track the weapon to the location. They see them testing the weapon. It doesn't work the way it's supposed to. There's so much happening here. And at the same time, you got Shran coming in and say, yeah, we just want to help you, man. We just want to help you. T'Pol's like, there is no way he just wants to help us. And Archer's like, I don't trust him either, but we could use his help. There's so much good stuff happening. So at the end, when they finally grab the weapon, and Shran's like, yeah, I could put it in my ship, but I could get it out of there. No problem with the radiation. So that double cross is the best, but then Archer gets the flip when they figured out a way to activate the weapon, and they tell Shran, either let that thing go or we're going to blow it up in your ship. And it is the best showdown. Shran has to drop it. It throws their ship out of whack, and Enterprise just taken off to start moving to the next step in their mission. But right at the end, it's super gratifying to know that Shran, who was definitely doing the double cross, but he also was meeting with his boss and like, really, should we really be doing this? So he didn't really believe it. And at that last second, they're not, by the way, they never say for sure that it was Shran. I'm assuming it was. That's always been my assumption.
That's what I always assume.
Yeah, it's always gratifying when that last shot of the episode is they're like, hey, just before we left, gotta upload from the Andorian ship, and it's the database of everything in this detailed scans of the weapon. So I love that moment. I feel really good about it. And that's like a big moment of trust between those two after such an interesting game of cat and mouse. So, proving ground. Jen, what's your take?
Tran and Archer are just they're just so perfectly matched. It's always great when they square off against each other. They're just so amazing together. It's such a great relationship. But the thing I really like about this is, okay, there was some ulterior motives, but the Andorians were working with the humans. And I always find that interesting that the sphere builders are doing this ostensibly because they don't want the Federation to ever happen.
Right.
They want the Federation to never exist.
Great.
Meanwhile, the Andorians and humans are working together.
Yep.
This is the beginning of that friendship, and every time they meet, they get, by the end, maybe we'll talk about it later, how Shran comes back in 0 Hour and does it without an ulterior motive. And I think that it's kind of bringing them together and take that, sphere builders. You can't keep the Federation down, They even mentioned, I think, in Twilight that Shran, even in the alternate feature, Shran helps them out in Twilight.
That's right.
They have a mention. You're like, so I just tell Shran thanks for that one. But
it's a
I
great
love
point.
that. I just love that.
It kind of it's leading to the building of the Federation. I love it.
Yeah.
Mike, what's your take on this one?
This episode is I couldn't really use it either for my Prime Directive because it kind of leaves you with a little bit of hope. But it's definitely a really good one. It's nice to see Shran when the season starts out. You kind of think, well, if they're stuck in the Expanse, probably not going to see Shran or any of the other people from back, in the previous seasons, but they show up anyway. And
it's great. Mike, this one leaves you with a lot of hope.
Jeffrey Combs, always great.
Yes, so good.
So good. And this is the episode with the amazing shot of Archer answering the hail and the antennas going up over his head. Yes. So good. So good.
And I love how he didn't trust Shran, because remember, didn't he have Reed keeping an eye on her?
They have the whole thing with Reed and Talus.
Something.
Talus. There's so much. This episode is packed. So much. Number 18 on my Enterprise Trek ranks. I love it.
Yeah, so good.
Okay, let's go to the soup round. Jen, what's your number 3 pick?
Eat your soup, courtesy of a loyal establishment. Jolan True.
Okay, my soup round pick. 5 words. Community theater's great production value. #gotcha. And this is Archer and company tricking Dagra into admitting the weapon's location is Azadi Prime in Stratagem.
So good.
I just love this whole episode.
Yep.
I love a good mind fuck, Yep. And that's all this episode is. It's so great. I mean, this is an elaborate ruse, not talking about the beginning with the, mind wipe and everything. The end, the moment is the end, the last part where they make this whole elaborate, shaking the ship, and you have to, and bring this engineer down and the ship's gonna tear itself apart if you don't help us, and blah blah blah, and they putting the fake thing on this view screen for him, and finally just gets to him, and he's like, "You'll never get the weapon. It's you'll never get past our defense perimeter," or whatever he says, and just Archer just gets the grin on his face, like, "Gotcha," But
next time, go a little easier on the turbulence.
Yes, people are like rolling around, and so good. And they all do a great job with it. But to me, this scene is the antidote to the airlocking, which is my least favorite thing in the whole history of Star Trek. I find this to be the antidote for that, because this is later. This is episode 14. Okay, and by this time he's not he's not just knee-jerk reacting like tell me what you know and torturing the guy. He's like, okay, I'm gonna be a little smarter about this, and try something else, and he gets the information, without having to commit these acts, and he's like you said earlier, Jim, like through the season, you see his evolution, and I think this is a big part of this. This is just so something that early season 3 Archer would not have done. Which I love. You
framed it perfectly. It's the antidote to that airlocking in Anomaly. Amazing. Okay, we're gonna do it again. I'm skipping you, Mike. We're going to my 5 words and a hashtag. I have the exact same pick. You'll never find the weapon. Hashtag fun with red giants. And it is stratagem. And it's that double gambit that, I mean, as good as this episode is for 40 minutes, the final 8 minutes is just like that double gambit, that double trick, the double sting operation. I just freaking love it. I mean, completely fooled me. It's one of those episodes, too, that where you like, when you rewatch it, you kind of, even though we've all seen it, a dozen times, you can still kind of put yourself in the place of enjoying the trick and not being like not seeing it coming, because it's just done so well. And so everything you said, Jen, that's why I picked it. And for me, this is a little bit of a reach on my trust element. It's only one, but it is kind of the first step to figuring out who Degra is, and it leads to Archer and the crew's ability to trust Degra. So last thing I'll say, and I looked this up because I always kind of check who wrote it. It was written by Mike Sussman, and which he's one of the best. But it's the second ever story credit in Star Trek history for a young Terry Matalas.
Oh, nice.
Really cool. Really cool.
I'm picking up several Xindi vessels. I'm also reading significant quantities of chemosite.
What's our status?
Minimal damage. Our hull plating's coming back online.
Arm all weapons. Land a course for those chemosite signatures. Full impulse. Get him out of here. You'll never get close to the weapon! Our defense perimeter will destroy you!
Okay, Mike, what's your take on stratagem?
What's really incredible is that it takes like 20 minutes before they reveal to the audience that it is a ruse.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, they're in that fake shuttle for a long time in the beginning.
Like it's really like if you're watching on TV with commercials, I mean, it's like past the 20-minute mark before they reveal that, like he steps out of it and everybody's standing there. Like you think maybe it's another time travel episode.
It's a home run episode. Really,
and
really
clever. I feel like this episode is like a major point in the season for Archer, and like his changing view on the Xindi, and like what he needs to do to stop this from happening. Because props to Scott Bakula for this season. I mean, it's incredible the journey that character goes through.
Yep,
and,
for sure.
And this episode is a big step in that.
This is definitely kind of the fulcrum for seeing a way out by trying to by the Star Trek way, right? Forging a relationship with them and convincing them and talking to them, and not just
and then erasing their memory.
Yep, and so good. Okay, let's go to Mike's round 3 soup round pick. What do you got, Mike?
There is no soup in my pick. I apologize.
Okay, that's not a requirement of the soup round.
You left me no choice. Hashtag RIP Degra.
Oh.
Dahlem kills Degra, launches the weapon, and kidnaps Hoshi.
God damn it. Yeah.
So a lot of stuff happens in like 5 minutes, and it is all very heartbreaking and devastating.
It's brutal. So this is not Countdown, the Council, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
The Council, episode 22.
Yeah. The death. I will never get over the death of Degra. That is brutal.
Yes, the death of Degra is very brutal, because you kind of spend the season up to that seeing him a few times and learning to really like him and forgive him for the mistake he made, and then he's dead.
So brutal. I mean, literally, and they do it so well because they right before it, and you don't really, sometimes it's telegraphed, but they have the scene with him and Trip, where Trip finally kind of comes around on him helping them, and he says something to Degra about, hey, if you could look at these coils that you guys gave us, I'd appreciate it. And then literally 3 minutes later, he's dead.
Yep.
Brutal. Jen, what's your take on the council? Amazing, devastating episode.
I'm bummed out now. Yeah.
I know, it's such a bummer.
Well, the brutality of it is like he says something like I'm gonna find your wife and kids and I'm gonna kill them too. That's the last thing Degra hears after we know at least one of the only things we know about Degra is that he loves his family, and that's just horrifying and gross. And yeah.
It's brutal. It's brutal. Okay, let's go to
fit your Prime Directive perfectly.
Those poor kids.
Yeah.
Well, he never got to.
No.
Round 2, Jen, what's your number 2 pick?
Okay, holding what makes us human, # stoic sympathy and righteous anger. This is damage, but it's specifically the moment I'm picking is Archer talking about his decision with Phlox and with DePaul separately about his decision to steal the warp core and how they both reflect different parts of this decision. I mean, this is kind of Archer's, In the Pale Moonlight or Tuvok's, decision. I didn't forget I brought that up. It's In the Pale Moonlight. But you know what I mean? Because it's like he's doing something that's objectively against everything he believes in, but he doesn't believe he has any other choice. And
what else are you gonna say?
What else are you gonna say about that? Yeah, like it's just, I mean, and the thing with this episode, he doesn't struggle over this choice. He learns that Degra has a meeting set up with him in 3 days, and the very next scene is a scene with Phlox. He has made this decision. He's going to do this. Like you don't even see that. You know what I mean? Like that. He doesn't hem and haw about it. He's just, I'm doing this, even though I discussed myself. But there's different angles with the Phlox and the DePaul scenes. I just love them both so much. He talks to Phlox, and what he's saying when he talks to Phlox, he's not asking for his permission to do this bad thing. He's not, you know what I mean? He's not like struggling over whether or not he should do it. He just wants some sympathy. He just wants to know, like he says to Phlox, have you ever done anything you've considered unethical? That's what he says to him. Yeah. And Phlox says twice. He doesn't say, oh yeah, I'm sure I've done some things. He said twice. Like, so two decisions that Phlox has made has stuck with him so much that he was able to just deliver that right away. You know what I mean?
Yep.
God, just those two actors are it's just a master scene of two actors, like the subtext of what they're not saying. They're just both have been through some shit, Yeah. And it's like, yeah, Phlox, there could be some casualties, and Phlox is like, I'll be ready. And this is just like this unspoken, like, yeah, this sucks, but we're in it together. And
John Billingsley's so good in that scene.
Oh, he's so good
understated.
In that scene.
When he says about the casualties, he's like, I understand. Yep.
Yeah.
And I love the camera angle and how he's kind of out of focus in the background and in the shadows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's really great in that scene.
I'm about to step over a line. Line I thought I would never cross. And given the nature of our mission, it probably won't be the last.
Probably not. May I ask what you're planning to do?
There could be more casualties.
I'll be ready.
Yeah. And then the opposite, he's talking to Paul, and she's basically, trying to be his conscious about it. She's obviously having trouble controlling her emotions. She's obviously not going to change his mind, but she's giving him what he's doing to himself, basically, what he's turning himself into. And she says, you told me, we can't save humanity without holding on to what makes us human.
Yeah.
And you could see he's like, oh, I did say that, you know what I mean? But he's just like he's not like he's stoic about it, you know, because he's just like, yeah, I know what I'm doing. I know I'm basically just like damaging my soul, you know.
I mean, I figured this episode would come up because it's I mean, it's critical to the season. It's critical to the success.
And she talks about the slippery slope of, you know, you do this once and then it's easier the next time and the next time. And that calls back to what he said to Phlox, you know, when he's like, yeah, I'm doing something that I'm not proud of. And it looks like there's going to be more of that probably based on the situation we're in, you know, he's preparing himself for that. And T'Pol's just airing it out loud because she can't control her emotions at this point. And it's just the contrast between the two scenes is just... It's just so interesting. It's just such an interesting episode because is he doing the right thing? I mean, if he didn't do that, would the weapon have gotten to Earth? Would Earth have been blown up? You know, I don't know. I have a headcanon that they went back and found the ship and escorted them back to their planet and everything was okay.
Mike, what's your take before I say that?
Face cannons return fire. This is also my round 2 pick.
Okay, well, there's a lot of devastation here. So
yes,
yeah. Okay, so why'd you pick it?
Give us your warp coil. Hashtag Delphic Expanse Damar.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I love it. Casey Biggs.
Yeah,
and you know, Archer orders an attack on the Illyrian ship to steal the warp coil. That's pretty heartbreaking. Yeah, this episode's a big. You know, like we were saying earlier about Archer's arc in his character in this season. I mean, this is a big step in that as well. Because early in the season, they get attacked by that other ship that steals a bunch of their stuff, like really early on. What's that, like second or third episode?
Yeah, Anomaly again.
The pirates.
And
Anomaly, man.
Yeah.
Such a good episode.
I know. Oh, the music in that episode. Anyway, we're not talking about that episode.
By the way, Anomaly's in like my top 12 or 13 episodes. Anyway, I love
it. But yeah, he ends up doing the very thing that he was, you know, that was done to him at the beginning of the season, and it's just, I mean, it's tragic,
right?
That they're in that position and they have to do it. That's also my headcanon. I always think about it when I watch that episode. I'm like, okay, at the end of the season, after everything's done, after they travel back to, you know, to the 1900s, and then they come back, like they went and found those guys and helped them get home.
Yeah.
Definitely happened.
That's definitely my take too, in terms of kind of trying to justify this, but I also justify it by, listen, if he hadn't done this, those guys are getting swallowed up in the sphere builders kind of reconfiguring space too. I mean, everybody loses, right? So
right.
As much as this is a brutal choice, impossible, and of course it's going to scar you and be difficult to live with, it was the only choice.
Right. And that's what makes it so interesting. Such a great episode too, because like that's the point, is it's easy to be a saint in paradise, you know?
Yep. It's literally the Kobayashi Maru for Archer. Okay, fantastic. Another duplicate. Let's close out round 2 with my pick. 5 words in a hashtag. What's one more dead human? Hashtag. I guess even Xindi have their limits. And it is The Forgotten, season 3, episode 20. And this is Degra finally understanding and trusting Archer and Trip. And I'm going to start by saying that The Forgotten, it's one of those episodes that when it first aired, I didn't really appreciate it the way I do now.
You kind of forgot it.
That was good. Well said, Mike. Yes, well said, Mike. But no, I'll tell you why. It was because the framing of the episode I don't like the writing the letter to the parents and that whole trope. Just the way they framed it with Trip, and that part I didn't really love. I didn't think it totally works.
It feels out of place in that point in the season and the intensity.
It's that for sure, because it definitely takes the intensity down. But I don't know if they executed that part perfectly. I mean, I appreciate it a lot more now, but it's the rest of this episode that's so good. It's all the Trip aggression with Degra And those amazing scenes on the hull of the ship where they're trying to fix the warp plasma. Again, we talked about the CGI. The CGI on that is incredible. It is absolutely stands the test of time. It's so good. So, but the moment I'm picking, and it is a great moment. It's a key Enterprise moment for me. It's when Archer and Degra are kind of getting to it, and they're coming to an agreement. And Degra says, man, you guys really have some cool, really good detailed scanning equipment on this ship. I'm surprised that a warship would have that. And Archer's like, this ship was designed as a ship of exploration. And then Degra says, well, if we're successful, it will be again. And I love that moment. It makes me want to bawl every time I see it. That is that's the mission. So that is the mission, to make this ship a ship of exploration again. So when we talk about,
they kind of say that a couple of times throughout the season,
right.
like, let's get back to what we were
get back to exploring. Yeah. This one kind of personifies it. And so while we're talking about that, I'll say that this is kind of the moment too for Trip finally to come around, because I'll tell you, we talked about a little bit with around the shipment and the beginning of the season. I remember being kind of bummed watching this season when it unfolded. I loved it, right? I loved the arc. I love the serialized storytelling. I thought they were taking it to really good sci-fi places. But part of me was a little bit bummed because the 9/11 allegory took a little bit of time to kind of play out in a way where I was comfortable with it, because the first part of the season, it's like, wait, we just want to slaughter these people. That's not cool. Right. That's not the right choice. So it was a real slow burn to that. And so by this time, you're really coming around. And they really got to, the point in where, you're peeling it all the way back into that Star Trek message of cooperation and understanding. And I really appreciate this arc and those stories for that. And this is that moment where I kind of was able to get there. And at the same time for Trip to finally get there, where he was able to see Degra as something more than just a villain to enact revenge on. Jen, what's your take?
Yeah, no, it is, because, gosh, because they start off, it's a very slow burn. It's a very slow burn, just like you said. Right. And I get, Tucker's the last one to have to, he's
last one to come around.
Last one to come around. Jeez, he almost comes around too much.
No, he does not.
Yes, he does. He's like, he doesn't have to be buddy with Degra. Degra still created a weapon that just killed his sister.
He throws him one olive branch, and then the guy dies.
And then the guy dies.
Not come too far.
Okay, but here it's I agree with you about the writing the letter thing, because then it's like, that's kind of weird that he's like writing a letter about his sister at the end, and that doesn't work for me very well. But
there's pieces of this, and there's another episode that I'll talk about in our secondary system that's similar structure around the things you remember about the episode you don't like, but there's a lot of really cool things in it that you forget about. Mike, what's your take on the Forgotten?
Basically the same thing that both of you have said already. I feel like that whole writing the letter thing would have fit in much better after everything was resolved, like maybe in that third episode of the fourth season, when they all come home and everybody's, but of course they had to focus on Trip and T'Pol, and they couldn't really have him also writing a letter, but yeah.
No, that's good. No, that actually that I like that point. Okay, let's go to round one. Jen, what is your number one Xindi War moment?
Begin round one.
Okay, I love this. This is my favorite. 5 words. Strong-willed for a primate. #absolute badass. And this is Hoshi resisting decrypting the weapon codes for as long as she can in Countdown.
Great pick.
Now, oh my God. So first of all, we like what we know of Hoshi is that she's young and this is, and she's a little bit more squeamish with the space travel in general, at the beginning of the series,
Yeah.
So the way she reacts when she's kidnapped by the reptilians here. So, she obviously says, I'm not helping you, F you, I'm not helping you. They're like, okay, we're going to inject you with these brain parasites. She spits in his face
Yeah.
Takes a shot of brain parasites, manages to fight them off enough to pretend that she's decrypting what they want her to decrypt, adds another layer of encryption to the thing.
That's so good.
Like right in front of his face too, you know? And then when they figure her out that she was able to resist the brain parasites, she tries to literally fling herself over the railing and kill herself rather than have them, put more brain parasites in it so she'll do what they want. Like that's badass. That's above and beyond.
I mean, the ultimate sacrifice she tried to make.
Ultimate sacrifice, yeah. And then even when in 0 Hour, she's like, I should have been faster. I tried to fling myself off the rail. I should have been faster because I gave them the codes. But she, what are you going to do? They put more brain parasites in there, and you'll do whatever they tell you to. And she did literally everything she could, above and beyond, and she was badass. And I just love that for her so much, and for us to get to witness it. That seemed just so great when the guys, supposedly watching her decrypt the thing. And she's like, yeah, now I can't, get into the encryption protocols or whatever it is.
This is an awesome pick. Linda Park is so good in these episodes.
Great.
It's so good. It's hard to watch, right?
Yes,
it's like,
yes.
Oh my God, I feel so much empathy for her in these scenes. It is brutal, but it's really the standout moment for Hoshi in the season, maybe the series.
Yeah.
I love her in it. Mike?
Yeah, I'm glad that she finally got a chance to shine. She was very, I want to say underused in this season, but there was just so much going on.
Right.
That some of those lower tier characters like her and Travis, like they didn't really get a whole lot in the season. But she did have the episode earlier with the guy. Exile, yeah. And I mean, that episode's okay, but that's probably, in my opinion, like the lowest point in the season. Though that episode, I mean, they needed it, but I'm glad that she got this major thing right at the end where she was like right in the action and a key component to. And
it's really smart writing to they need 3 codes, and the aquatics aren't going to be there, but they're like, yeah, we got a plan. We're going to grab this amazing linguist that you brought right to our council chambers, and she translated all of our languages right in front of us, so we know she's good. I just thought that was really clever.
So good.
Fantastic. Awesome number 1 pick. Countdown. Okay, Mike, what's your number 1 Xindi War moment?
Year of Hell finally realized. Hashtag cliffhanger rivals best of both worlds.
Oh, yes. I love this pick.
It is the near destruction of the Enterprise at the end of Azadi Prime.
It's so good.
That it is brutal. Like they, for like 2 or 3 minutes straight, they're just getting blasted. And you're on the edge of your seat, like, oh my God, like you see crew members flying out of like holes in the ship, and like pieces of it are flying off, and like you're just like, are they gonna, like, what are they gonna do? Like, and then of course, to be continued. Like, come on.
That moment is so good. Again, we keep talking about the CGI. The CGI on that is phenomenal. That scene is, man, you just feel like you're getting beat up watching the Enterprise just get completely obliterated. Oh man, I love this pick. Azadi Prime is another top 20 episode for me for Enterprise, and they really leave you with a state like there's no way out of this. But then they write a really plausible way to get out of it. It's so good. So good. Jen, what's your take?
Yeah, and then you said it, Mike, Year of Hell realized, because it lasts, the effects last. Yep. I mean, they're not just on the sets, like okay, they don't have a mess hall for a while. Yeah. There's also things like, okay, we can't get into Cargo Bay 2 because it's uninhabitable right now. Yeah. They're just ragamuffins, to like everything fixed.
And there's plasma leaks on the hull.
Plasma leaks, yeah.
It's I mean, it's incredible. Like
good.
What they wanted to do with Year of Hell, and they got reduced to a 2 episode two-parter, and they finally did it in the season, and it was so good.
Absolute home run. The visuals in Azadi Prime are amazing, and also it's just cool to say Azadi Prime. I mean, come on,
that's a great name. It's a great name.
When we do top 5 Star Trek words, that's going to be in the mix. So right there with Galorndon Core. Okay, let's go to my number 1, 5 words and a hashtag. And my episode is Countdown too. It's a different moment. It's 5 words and a hashtag. An aquatic decision, not easy. Hashtag easier to count the stars in the sky. And so this is a little bit, this isn't like, normally I try to end on like a big moment. This is kind of a small moment, but I wanted to go chronological. I love the aquatics. I love them. I don't care what anybody says. Like, oh my God, in my notes again, 20-year-old CGI is incredible. It still works. It stands the test of time. I love those guys floating around their ships and their language design, the design of the ships. Everything is super cool. And I like that the aquatics are super contemplative, right? And they're super even keel. And they take days and weeks to make decisions. That's just a really interesting element to add to the personality of this string of Xindis. So my moment is when Archer is like desperate, right? And he's got the arboreals and the primates on his side, but their ships aren't strong enough, so they need the aquatics to join them and go try to stop the reptilians and the insectoids. And so the scene is Archer just pitching to them that they need help and really trying to talk them through it. And I just love this moment. And at the very end, they're like, well, we'll think about it. Might be a week. He's like, we don't have a week. And by the way, have you seen the spheres that are happening? You're not going to have any space to live with, but we know how to destroy them. And that finally gets the aquatics' attention. And they go back to their ship. And then like 3 hours later, they have an answer. And the primates are like, wow, that was really fast for the aquatics. Anyway, I just love that moment. I love that scene. And I wanted to include it in my list, even though it's a really small kind of moment. So, Jen, what's your take on the aquatics in Countdown?
I knew you were going to pick the aquatics in some way.
I love
how you
that.
feel about those. But the thing that always gets me about the aquatics is, I'm like you said, I like that they're like that they're cerebral species, of the Xindi, or you said But the thing that always strikes me about it is how accommodating the Xindi Council is to them. Right. Like they need these special tanks, and you know what I mean, to be able to interact, and they just do it. Like it's like not even a thing. Like they just give all the you know what I mean. Like they have all they sit around the council table, but they make sure that the aquatics can be part of every conversation. And it's just neat the way that the different species of Xindis interact with each other. I just find it so fascinating. I do too. Yeah, as a species, as a 5 species collective, they're just so interesting.
6. Yeah. Don't forget that.
6. So our poor,
as Greylick says,
for bird friends.
For as big of assholes as the reptilians are, it's pretty incredible that they were able to all work together.
Yeah,
you would think that with as different as they are, even though they're so closely related, you think they would maybe choose to just go off to separate planets and start their own societies after their homeworld was destroyed. But they tried to stick together, despite their differences.
That's so interesting.
We didn't talk about it too much, but listen, as a villain or a creature design, it's really inspired, and they do kind of address that every once in a while, where they're like, yeah, but our differences, it's just part of who we are. And not that they need each other. It's nothing that blatant, but they talk about the reasons, they still work together.
Yeah. Even at the end, they talk about how the reptilians will eventually rejoin the council.
Right. Exactly.
We'll get through this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's really
so interesting.
It's a really clever design, and it's one of the reasons it works so well.
They really feel like brothers,
Yep.
Talk about a high concept.
Yes, that's an incredibly high concept, which must have been featured when we did top 5 Enterprise high concept episodes.
I cheated and picked Xindi as a species.
Oh, did you? Were you on that one? I love
yes.
it. Okay, fantastic. All right, let's get into some secondary systems. Mike, rattle off some of your extras.
Let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
All right, so I have a few, and I actually have 5 words and hashtags for them.
Oh, I love it. Rattle them off.
All right, so no more of that talk. Hashtag RIP Major Hayes.
I'm glad he came up.
Me too.
Captain Archer saves the day. Hashtag no good deed when Archer sacrifices himself to save Earth.
Yep.
Of course, I mean, we all know that he didn't die, but they didn't know. So this one was
by the way, that was they executed that so good. I mean, when they come back to the ship and they're like, "Where's the captain?" And Reed's his captain didn't make it. I mean, it's so heartfelt. It really hits. It really hits.
I actually wish that they had held off the reveal that he was there until the beginning of the next season, so that you wouldn't know. Like you would think maybe he did die. But I know that they.
I'm so grateful they didn't do that.
You're crazy. I'm so glad they didn't do that.
No, I understand. Right. They need to show don't worry, he's not dead. But
right.
The storyteller in me wants that.
Yeah. All right, keep going.
All right, so this one's the only one that didn't really meet my prime directive.
Yep.
Aquatics, arboreals, insectoids, primates, reptilians. Hashtag which one is Xindi? It's the opening scene of the Xindi where we first see the council. Less than 6,000 left. Hashtag sadder than Alderaan. It's the opening scene of Twilight. Archer to Enterprise medical emergency. Hashtag Ripley would know what to do. It's the power grid overloads and kills the infant insectoid hatchlings.
I thought that's where you were going.
We can risk it. Fire. Hashtag target the facility. Destroying the Xindi moon outpost with 3 life signs.
Oh God, that was brutal. Wait, that was in
Azadi Prime.
In Azadi Prime, yeah. Oh man, that was rough. That was as hard as the decision to make because you just killing 3 faceless people or just
right. Well, we have to. They're gonna expose us. Do it.
Yeah. That again, they executed that really well with how much it affected Archer.
And my last one is why would we remember them? Hashtag paradox. Enterprise sacrifices itself to save Enterprise in E2.
E squared. Love it. Fantastic.
E squared, yeah.
Okay. Fantastic list. Jen, what do you got?
Okay. Well, I'm glad you mentioned Major Hayes because Hayes and Reed are just hilarious.
Oh, wait. Sorry. I do have one more I forgot to say. This one doesn't. I just wanted to give a shout out to the unrealized relationship between Trip and Commander Cole.
Bombshell Mako. I love her.
Those babies would have been gorgeous.
Yeah.
And it was snuffed out by T'Pol's jealousy.
Oh, T'Pol.
Amazing.
So jealous.
Okay, now
I thought you were going to say the relationship between Reed and Hayes. Hello.
Yeah,
okay,
I mean,
Jen.
talk about rivals to lovers. That's where I was going.
Those babies would be gorgeous.
They absolutely would. I love them. I think that's funny, but I love how they managed to work through their ridiculousness, and it took the Mako dying under Reed's command. That's when they really, learned that they're so similar. But yeah, rivals to lovers. I would read that. I would read that fanfic. Okay, but for me, I am in love with the power cell inversion sequence. Just makes me laugh every time. I love it. In 0 Hour, this is when Archer has to, put the lights upside down.
So cool.
In the right order. It's
awesome.
So funny. Well, it's funny because it's like, it makes 0 scientific sense, but I'm still so invested in it. I'm like,
you don't know how that
next?
thing works, Jen.
Next?
It makes perfect scientific sense. You have no idea how the power's running through that thing.
And then then it's and then you have to wait until you trip the reactor, and then you can do the last one, and that'll set it off. And I just love it. It's
have you ever changed a fuse? You gotta wait to.
You got to flip the fluorescent bulbs and then flip the switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. It makes me laugh, but it's just so funny because they really do get a lot of tension out of that, out of just changing
much
the
tension.
colors.
I love
so much tension. I love it. I also love in 0 Hour. 0 Hour is such a great season finale. I love the little, I call him Baby Mako, because he's just so young looking. He's obviously like
the guy who dies.
Yeah, but he puts up such a good fight before he dies.
Yeah.
Like you could tell he's a really talented stunt man, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just,
by the way, that guy was in a bunch of episodes before that too. I can't remember his name right now.
Oh, he's so great. And then he dies. But then it's funny because he basically loosens the pickle jar for Reed, because then Reed comes out of nowhere and just like does one little kick and kicks the guy off the bed.
Right.
It makes me laugh every time. I love that. But I always feel bad for Baby Mako. I love that part. And then of course, then Archer gets his heroic moment of like running down the corridor as like the explosions are going off, and it's just 0 Hour so great.
So by the way, I want to clarify, I thought you were talking about the Mako that died in the council when they were inside the sphere and they got grabbed by the
grabbed by the
oh yeah, that was horrifying.
That guy had been in previous episodes. You're talking about the one who was on the 0 Hour
on the weapon
the
in 0 Hour.
I totally get you now. Yeah.
The first time I saw that episode and that arm comes out, I was like, "What the?"
It's
like,
creepy.
That was
it's
good,
creepy.
and that's more good CGI. I'm telling you.
Yeah, so good.
All right, any more?
And then, I just want to say, I really do want to mention home as part of this arc, because this is Archer dealing with like all the crappy things he had to do, and just feeling, and he literally has a nightmare about the Xindi in that episode, and it weighs on him. What it's changed, how the Xindi War changed him is weighing on him, and it's an important piece of this story, and then how he deals with everything from then on.
That's really good. I knew there was some other connections in the season 4. That's the perfect one. Yeah. Cool. Okay.
I'll also just mention that we do get to see the Xindi in you mentioned Prodigy and Crossroads, which is pretty cool. They're reptilians of all.
They're the security folks. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and we get to hear Xindi language and everything. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that. That was a good. that was a good callback. Okay, so I've got just a few that haven't been mentioned. I love in the shipment when they're testing the Xindi insectoid rifle. I just love those things. That whole rifle is super cool with your little organic elements and and you get that feeling like, man, we don't know anything about these people. We can't even fire their phasers. It was really, really well done. I like
it's
that.
so tripping to Paul for her to be like, maybe you shouldn't
You should test that maybe on a planet.
And he's like, I guess you're right.
Afterwards, it's like, next time let's go to a planet. And then I'm bummed that none of my picks had anything to do with the spheres. I love the spheres.
I love the spheres.
Anytime they go into and explore one, and they're on the surface of one in Anomaly and the Council, I love that stuff. And what I was going to say before, you talked about a little bit, was in Exile. All that stuff with Hoshi, it's not a great episode, but when they go in, land on one of the spheres with the shuttle, and then it like starts to float away, they have to shoot the thruster out to get it to fall back on the sphere, and then it kind of rolls up. And I just love that whole scene. It's goofy and interesting, and again, pretty good CGI. So and then my last thing, a special shout out to Captain Balthazar Edison in Star Trek Beyond and his service in the Xindi Wars. I fought for humanity, lost millions to the Xindi and Romulan Wars, and for what? For the Federation to sit me in a captain's chair and break bread with the enemy.
That's pretty good.
There's my Balthazar Edison.
Hey Jim,
I love that moment. Yes, go.
Did you not choose any of the moments with spheres because I can't say
the word sphere? I'm doing pretty good in this episode. I'm doing pretty good.
You've done pretty good this episode.
Yeah, I talked around it a couple of times, but it's a sphere. It's a sphere. Why can't I say the word sphere? Oh my God, hilarious. Thanks for calling that out, Mike. Good man. All right, let's get into our regeneration cycle after talking about some amazing Star Trek Enterprise. Let's go through some stats and a recap of our picks.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
Okay, Jen, recap your picks.
All right. My number 5 pick was Greylick sabotaging the chemosite in the shipment. My number 4 pick was Archer imprinting on the bug babies in hatchery. Number 3 was Archer and the crew tricking Degra into admitting the weapon's location in stratagem. My number 2 pick was Archer reflecting on his decision to steal the warp core with Phlox and T'Pol in damage. And my number 1 pick was Hoshi resisting in a very badass manner in Countdown.
Love that number 1 pick. Mike, break down your 5.
One thing just occurred to me. Sorry that this is kind of out of place here. But ever since my Prime Directive, we have not even mentioned similitude.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, it does apply to the Xindi, but it's also kind of a little bit of a standalone.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to pick North Star, right? I mean,
right.
So
it's just funny. Earth needs Enterprise. Enterprise needs Trip. In the same way, like he's the chosen one. Just like Archer's kind of the chosen one too. That's Daniels keeps saying how important he is to the Federation. Send Hoshi and Reed.
Daniels needs Archer. Archer needs Enterprise. Enterprise needs Trip.
Hey, Mike.
It's all connected.
I like structure and meter.
I like structure. I like meter. I like keeping tempo and time, which is why you will probably find this inspection boring.
Go back to your 5 picks.
Love Shaw.
Number 5, the opening scene of The Expanse, where the Xindi weapon shows up and shoots Florida and Venezuela. Number 4 is Dijamat deleting the sphere data. Number 3 is the death of Degra in the council. Number 2 is Archer ordering attack on Illyrian ship to steal their warp coil and damage. And number 1 is the near destruction of the NX-01 at the end of Azadi Prime.
Brilliant list. God, your guys' number 1 picks were so good. Okay, my 5 to recap. Number 5, the shipment and the trust that Greylick shows Archer. Number 4, proving ground and the game of cat and mouse between Shran and Archer and the trust that they grow towards with the download of the Xindi database weapon. Number 3, stratagem and that early days of trying to figure out how to work with Degra. Number 2, the Forgotten and the Enterprise being a ship of exploration. And number 1, from Countdown, the Aquatics coming on board to help out Archer and the crew. Okay, amazing. So I did break down a few stats. So we had 3 duplicates. I figured there'd be some duplicates. Those were good. And the episode count, there were 11 episodes selected overall, including 4 that got double mention. So Damage, The Shipment, Stratagem, and Countdown each got 2 references. And there was that 1 season 2 pick for The Expanse. Good choice, Mike. And then the main breakdown here, where I did a count of reptilians, arboreals, primates, insectoids, and aquatics being kind of the focus of the pick. And there was about 10 episodes that I think, so about 2/3 that had a focus. So there was 1 I would associate to insectoids, 1 to aquatics, 2 to reptilians, 2 to the arboreals, and 4 to the primates, which kind of makes sense. Just an extra fun way to break it all down. Amazing Enterprise conversation. I love it. And now we're going to initiate a temporal inversion because it's time to hear from you.
Initiate temporal inversion.
Initiating.
And for this week's temporal inversion, we're going back to episode 150. One of our biggest episodes ever was our TrekRanks potpourri in celebration of 150 episodes. That's the one where we spun the wheel for every pick, so everyone had a different past topic from the show. And we got a fantastic list in from Peter Hong at Peter Trek1. And I love this list, so give it a listen.
Hi, Jim and TrekRanks. This is Peter Hong, aka Peter Trek1 on Twitter. I enjoyed listening to your episode 150, Trek Potpourri, so I thought I would take a few spins of the random Chronoton episode generator and submit my 5 Trek Potpourri episodes. For my Prime Directive, I selected episodes from 5 different series, and I also avoided picks which were selected during the original TrekRanks episode, as well as from my previous appearances on TrekRanks. The order of things, 5 words and a hashtag. Round 5. I got the top 5 one-off heroes, which was TrekRanks episode 20 from January 27, 2018. My 5 words and a hashtag are How Other Lower Deckers Live. Hashtag From Lower Decker to Captain in 25 Minutes. My round 5 pick is Ma'a, the Klingon from Lower Deck Season 2, Episode 9, Wage Douche. This is one of my favorite Lower Decks episodes. We saw Ma'a, the Klingon, become heroic as he stood up to and defeated his captain and left the battlefield. Round 4, top 5 Von Armstrong moments, which was episode 119 from September 10th, 2021. My 5 words in a hashtag is launching a new class of starships, hashtag an assist from Zephram Cochrane. My round 4 pick is Admiral Forrest speaking at the launch of the NX-01 in Enterprise's Broken Bow. Admiral Forrest provided the words of encouragement and support to Captain Archer and helped launch the NX-01. It was a good way to start off the show and the ship's mission and would be a sign of his important role on Enterprise as Archer's commanding officer. Round 3, top 5 Crusher episodes. Episode 108 from April 8th, 2021. My 5 words and a hashtag, Captain Picard or Nick Locarno. Hashtag First Duty is to the Truth. My round 3 pick is TNG Season 5, Episode 19, The First Duty. This episode is a top 5 TNG episode for me, as well as my favorite Wesley Crusher story. I liked how this episode gave Wesley a quandary on what to do about the real cause of the Nova Squadron accident. Should he listen to Picard and tell the truth at the Board of Inquiry, or stick with his fellow Nova Squadron teammates and say nothing, which was what Squadron leader Nick Locarno wanted Wesley to do. My round 2, top 5 food moments, which was episode 6 from way back on July 8th, 2017. 5 words and a hashtag, crazy computer catches Scotty off guard, hashtag a pie in the face. My round 2 pick is the animated series Season 2, Episode 3, The Practical Joker. In this episode, the Enterprise computer started to play practical jokes. When Scotty asked for a grilled cheese on rye sandwich, it started to spew random food to Scotty, who also got a pie in the face at the end. For my round 1, I got the top 5 buzzer beaters, which was episode 92 from September 3rd, 2020. My 5 words and a hashtag, mine is the final command, hashtag self-destruct showdown. My round 1 pick is the self-destruct sequence scene from TOS's Season 3, Episode 15, Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. It started with a well-done sequence with the senior officers arming the ship's self-destruct program. Then Kirk and Bailey played chicken while the self-destruct countdown continued. This was a tense scene which Star Trek III The Search for Spock will do a variation of years later. So those are my picks for Trek Potpourri. Thanks for creating this interesting topic, Jim. Take care and live long and prosper.
All right, fantastic stuff from Peter. He got one-off heroes and picked Maha, the Klingon, the Boimler Klingon from Wedge Douche. And I love that pick. I love that pick. But bunch of good picks there. And he had one Enterprise selection in there. He had Von Armstrong moment. So nice. That's a nice tie-in to this week's show. All right, once again, those picks, more than enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal inversion. So as always, I want to thank everyone again for all your great responses to the TrekRanks podcast. Keep your list coming to me at TrekRanks on Twitter so we can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of top 5 Xindi War moments or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call at the Tricorder Transmissions at 609-512-5527, or you can just record it yourself and then send me a DM and we'll connect that way. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are returning to our favorite TrekRanks series for the 14th time. It's Scenes in Trek. And this time we are doing our top 5 scenes in water. Doesn't get any more clear than that. However you define water and being in water, pick your favorite 5 scenes. So Jenn and Mike, if you had to choose one cool scene in water, what would be on your top 5 list? Jenn, what do you got?
Well, I mean, if I get to go first, I'm picking the classic San Francisco Bay voyage home.
My
You
God.
suck.
Of course. The bounty.
The bounty.
Oh, so good. Okay,
Oh,
so
my God.
that is a great pick for sure. One of the most iconic scenes in water in Star Trek history. Mike, come up with a different one. What do you got?
Well, now I'm racking my brain. So
Oh, there's so many. It doesn't have to be water. It could be a liquid. Could be. Hell, you could pick the aquatics. I picked the aquatics.
Oh, yeah.
tonight. There you go.
that's true. You can pick the aquatics. I'm trying to think of something more recent so I can be different. Any water, or does it have to be like a scene that's in water?
It's however you define it, man. You ever listen to the show? Somebody could just be wet.
Okay, so my scene is it involves water, but it's more like a lack of water.
Oh,
because they want the water, but they can't get to it, and it's Wesley Crusher and Captain Picard stranded on the desert.
There you
planet.
go. I love it because there's water in that scene. They got to get to it.
Yep, and they can't get to it. What's that? Final mission?
Final mission. Captain Durgo's never going to drink that water. That's for sure.
Yep. I learned from that episode that alcohol will dehydrate.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. All right, looking forward to that one. Scenes in water. That's going to be awesome.
Channel closed. Reset. Subspace communication. Scrambler code Riker 1.
Scrambler code Riker 1 acknowledged. Okay, let's close this episode out with a huge thanks to Jenn, Tifft, and Mike Rittenhouse. It was awesome having you guys on. Any final Trek Scrambler codes? Either one you want to relay before we depart? Jenn.
Yeah, thanks. What a fun topic. Appreciate it.
Super, super good. Awesome having you on. Michael.
Maybe I will return sooner than the next 150 episodes. This may be the longest break in between somebody appearing on TrekRanks ever.
It could be. It could be. What was? Do you know the number of the last one?
I was on episode 4, which was the.
Okay, but you were on one since then.
I was unofficially on episode 136, Sleazy Locales.
Oh, that's right.
But I showed up as a surprise in your hotel room and made some commentary on everybody. But I wasn't officially in that episode.
No, there was
Special
one other
guest
one.
Star.
There was one other one. I'm looking at
I feel like there was one too. Like, wasn't there you and some other guys for 5-year mission?
Oh, yeah. Was I?
Yeah, hold on. It was you and Fark.
It was pretty early though. Still.
Yeah, it was. It was episode 26, top 5 TOS underrated with 5-year mission.
I did not even remember that. Okay, yeah. Well, slightly less than 100.
So 126 some odd episodes. I think the only one close is Thad. It took there was a long break between Thad appearances, which makes no sense because we love Thad and we need to get him on more often.
But yes, thank you for having me back. This was great. I love Enterprise and I love this entire Xindi 3rd season. It's one of the greatest seasons in all of Trek. So honored that you had me on here to talk about it.
It seriously is awesome. No better way to close it than that. I love it. All right. Thanks, everyone, again, for engaging with us here on episode 157 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
How did you get this? The first sphere we came across was damaged. There was a breach in the outer shell.
We've never been able to gain access to one. These scans are remarkably detailed for a military vessel.
Enterprise was designed to be a ship of exploration.
If we're successful, it will be a gun.
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
I think you underestimate humanity.
I fought for humanity! Lost millions to the Xindi and Romulan wars! And for what? For the Federation to sit me in a captain's chair and break bread with the enemy!
We change. We have to. We spend the rest of our lives fighting the same battles.